Today marks the beginning of the tampering window for free agents in the NFL, so we discuss where people would end up and what the best fits would be. Earl Thomas. And unlike Landon Collins, my candidates for this player are a lot shorter simply because of Thomas's injury history and his age. So the few teams I feel that would significantly benefit from having Earl Thomas would be the New York Jets, because I feel he could be a great experience and leader that could help, especially help a player like Jamal Adams, is like a very up and coming star in the league right now. And I feel he could help some of these other other teams that already have young talent at the secondary position, specifically the corner position, who could be looking for an even bigger impact. So I feel he could also fit at the Tennessee Titans. He could help out Kevin Byard there. One of them could do like a kind of like hybrid strong safety, free safety combination. And the other two places I think he would fit very well are the Oakland Raiders and the Houston Texans. So although the Raiders have already spent a lot, I still think they're in the running for Earl Thomas. I think Carl Joseph has not been what most people expected. He's been kind of on the downside the last couple of years. And I feel if he could have someone who could be a mentor to him, who could teach him his tricks, his tips and tricks, I feel that would greatly benefit him a lot. And then finally, the Houston Texans. So I already mentioned Justin Reid, is who I think is going to be a top 3 safety in the league next year. I feel Earl Thomas, just same with Carl Joseph and Jamal Adams, it would just be a great mentor for all these players. All 3 of these players, Jamal Adams, Justin Reid, and Carl Joseph, all very young players. And while Earl Thomas is getting up there at 29, 30, he would be a great mentor because of the amount of experience he's had with the Legion of Boom. He's been to multiple Super Bowls, and I think he would just be a tremendous mentor to these young players. So perhaps the biggest question in free agency this year is what's going to happen with Le'Veon Bell. So right now, the situation is still kind of murky. There haven't been any major reports. So far, the 2 leading candidates, I would say, or 3 leading candidates based on reports I've heard, would be the Raiders, the Jets, and the Colts. I don't believe he will go to the Raiders. There was a report that this doesn't sound too realistic to me, but there's a report that John Gruden was trying to get Kyler Murray, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell all on the same team together. That would be absolutely amazing, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think that the Jets are definitely in the run for it. I think I actually would put the Jets ahead of the Colts for likely landing spots for Le'Veon Bell, simply because of Marlon Mack. In the playoffs last year, Marlon Mack absolutely balled out. He was doing amazing. He did amazing. He set a record for the most amount of rushing yards. I think it was either in team history or I'm pretty sure in team history, the most amount of rushing yards in the postseason by a rookie. So I think Marlon Mack, he wasn't used as much as I think he should have been last year, but I think if they know how to manage his workload correctly, he could be top 10 running back in the league next year. And then the Jets. So with the Jets, I think the primary reason I'm sticking with the Jets as my number one choice is they have the second most amount of cap space this year. They have a struggling quarterback who has a lot of potential but is still struggling. And right now they don't have a running back. They like a couple years ago, they've had Matt Forte, they've had Chris Ivory, they've had Bilal Powell. They still have Bilal Powell. But they've had a bunch of it's kind of been like a bunch of transition periods at the running back position through the years for the Jets. So I feel like this will cement this position and kind of help them move around and focus on other positions, specifically in the draft. And I feel, again, because of cap space and because of the depth chart at that position right now, the Jets would be the ideal fit for Le'Veon Bell right now. And the fact that New York is the biggest market in the league right now. So the other debate there's been a lot of conversations about is what's going to happen with the quarterbacks in this year's draft. So as of right now, it seems pretty evident that the 1 and 2 quarterbacks are in whatever order you choose, but I think Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins. I as of right now, I don't know enough about both of them to decide which one I think is higher than the other. But based on the report so far, I think I'm pretty safe in saying that those two are the best quarterbacks this year in the draft. So I've broken down. This has no reference to cap space or anything whatsoever. I've just broken down the 5 teams that I feel are in the market for one of these 2 quarterbacks, or not even one of these 2 quarterbacks, but drafting a quarterback in the first round. Whether it's someone else like Will Grier or someone else like Drew Lock or whatever it is. So I'm going to start off with, this might be a pretty unpopular opinion, but I'm going to start off with the San Francisco 49ers. So Jimmy G had that one amazing half season 2 years ago. It was a great season. He was traded halfway through the season, and he finished the season off tremendously with the team, and everyone was getting ready for next year, this past year, because they thought that Jimmy was going to break out, become a star, and the Niners are going to be very good. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL a few games into the season, and we're not sure if he's going to be back 100%. We're not sure. Because he didn't prove a lot with the Patriots, even though he showed he has a lot of talent, we still don't know what his base level is right now. So I would keep that as a team to watch. That's not a team I'm expecting as a front runner for either Haskins or Murray, but I'm just saying that's a team to watch this year in the draft for quarterbacks. So after that, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Bengals still have Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has still been a good quarterback. Andy Dalton has had some injury history in the past, but Andy Dalton has not successfully made a good postseason run, and his regular season success has not translated to postseason success. So I feel, especially with huge talent around him, like A.J. Green, Joe Mixon at running back, I feel inserting a young quarterback there would definitely be a good decision, especially because of all the talent and all the options he would have to throw the ball to or hand the ball off to. So yeah, I feel the Bengals are definitely a top candidate for drafting one of those 2 quarterbacks, but it doesn't necessarily have to be one of those 2 quarterbacks. So after the Bengals, I am going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So last year, the Buccaneers rolled with that combination of Ryan Fitzmagic, and Jameis Winston. So I believe I personally would start Ryan Fitzpatrick over Jameis Winston. The reason I say this, Winston has had time and time and time again to prove his worthiness in this league. Off the field, he has failed. He has failed at proving his worthiness. On the field, he has failed with the amount of turnovers in his decision-making on the field, too. I feel is absolutely horrendous. As well as he racks up stats in passing yards, he also racks up a lot of interceptions and turnovers. And I feel he still has not, although he was the first overall pick a few years ago, he still has not showed that he is capable of being a starting quarterback, and I definitely wouldn't roll with Ryan Fitzpatrick as my starting quarterback. But if I had to decide between those 2, I think I'd go with Fitzpatrick. But due to Fitzpatrick's age, I think that the Bucs definitely have to consider and weigh their options at quarterback in this year's draft. So after the Bucs, I'm going to go with the New York Giants. So a lot of people, it's very popular in mock drafts for people to have Dwayne Haskins going to the New York Giants. And because a lot of people think the next team I'm going to name is where Kyler Murray's going. So I think the Giants would be a tremendous fit for a player like Haskins, who would have arguably, in my opinion, the most talent that a young quarterback could go to, with Saquon Barkley at running back, Odell Beckham at receiver, Shepard at receiver, Evan Ingram at tight end. The options to throw to are endless and endless on this team. Although they definitely need help on the offensive line. The Nate Solder deal last year didn't really work out. He didn't pan out to how they thought he would be. But I think Haskins or Murray, either one of them, would be a tremendous fit on this team. And then finally, one of the more obvious ones is the Arizona Cardinals. So they have the number 1 pick in this year's draft. The problem is people aren't sure what they think of Josh Rosen. The other problem is they have a new coach, Cliff Kingsbury. People don't know what he thinks of Josh Rosen. People know Cliff Kingsbury thinks very highly of Kyler Murray. So the question is Cliff Kingsbury in the Cardinals organization willing to trade away Josh Rosen and draft Kyler Murray? This is also a very murky subject right now. We don't have a lot of evidence on which way they're leaning or anything. Some people have reported that they think Kyler Murray is going to be the first overall pick, or it could happen. So I'm not sure which direction to go. Personally, if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, I am starting over. The reason I say this is because I think they made a terrible, terrible decision getting rid of firing Steve Wilks. I think he was a tremendous coach with lots of knowledge and lots of skill of the game. And he could have, they cut him after 1 year. They fired him after 1 year as a coach with a rookie quarterback, absolutely horrendous offense, absolutely horrendous defense. And other than Patrick Peterson and Chandler Jones, the team is pretty much talentless. So I feel that since Cliff Kingsbury likes Kyler Murray, he's in a Big 12 offense, which is what Kyler Murray was as well. Cliff Kingsbury came from Texas Tech, and Big 12 offenses are known for high scoring, and their defenses are known for letting up a lot of points and not being that great. But the emphasis is on the offenses being high scoring offenses, and I think Kingsbury, based on the players he worked with at Texas Tech, Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray fits just as well with those two as any other quarterback in terms of playing style. Baker Mayfield and Pat Mahomes are very, very, very similar playing styles to Kyler Murray. All three of them are to a certain degree mobile. Kyler Murray obviously being the most mobile out of them. But I think since the Cardinals decided to go the path of firing Steve Wilks, they kind of have to go the path of firing Josh Rosen, although it's not really firing. They'd be trading him for compensation. But I feel Josh Rosen definitely has a lot of potential. I feel it is unfair that a lot of the blame was put on him, especially since he has no weapons around him other than maybe Larry Fitzgerald. Their defense is really, really bad, minus Peterson and Jones. And I feel he is one of those players who, if he has a change of scenery in a different team and supporting cast around him, one of those players who could really make a significant step in the foreseeable future. So one of the strongest, undoubtedly, positions in free agency this year is linebacker. So as of right now, I think my top linebacker in this year's free agency would be CJ Mosley. My reasoning behind this, there are a few others who are close. KJ Wright, I think, is close, but his age makes him a little less desired by some teams, maybe. Another player is Quan Alexander, who I think he's very young, just like Mosley, up and coming, great player under the radar, who probably wouldn't be as expensive as someone like KJ Wright or CJ Mosley. But the fact that he tore his ACL last year is not helping him out a lot. And then Anthony Barr, I think, is doing great. I'd probably put him second. The one thing that cautions me against going with Anthony Barr is this year was a slight downtick in his effectiveness as a player. He still is a tremendous player. I'm not sure if it was the way the defense was playing or whatnot. But I think right now, out of those top 4 linebackers, CJ Mosley is the only one who is still on an upward trend.